Welcome back. I hope you had a good Canadian Thanksgiving if you're Canadian. If you're American, I don't know, you might have your own next month. Who cares? Um, so I'm gonna do something a little different, and it's not something I really wanted to do for the longest time because I thought a lot of these kind of people are, well, kind of like, I don't want to say so much as irrelevant as there's so much bigger societal problems, and um, to kind of like focus on these people is kind of like um, ignoring real issues to look at people complaining about the smallest of first world problems, which the other issue is that a lot of these things aren't even problems. They're just kind of like making them problems for the sake of it. Um, and I always wanted to talk about things that are kind of like more important than me. More important than like us all. But unfortunately, like maybe it's kind of like a snowball effect. It just kind of like keeps growing and growing, and I kind of want to kind of put a bit of a kibosh on it. At least like me. I don't want to say it's too late for some of these people, but if I kind of like at least help kind of like call these people out, at least other people will see when they're looking at these videos not to take them so seriously, because like that's what they want, to be taken seriously, and you know it's no laughing matter. Um, so I'm gonna like jump into the video, but as I mentioned in the previous video, this is gonna be talking about kind of like a bit of the ugly side of kind of like modern life and social climates with you know gamers. I know that's a bit of a weird word to use these days. Like, ooh, you said the gamer word and all that. Like, there's nothing wrong with playing games. Um, Everybody plays their games these days. It's not something like the '80s where like only a very specific demographic played games. Um, and that's definitely something that a lot of these guys kind of like hit a point on. They always try to say that um, why do games try to advertise themselves to a bigger audience when they know that the only people that play their games is you know a very specific audience that like apparently hasn't changed and evolved and increased since, I don't know, the '80s or like arcades or whatever. um but the reality is, people from all kind of walks of life play games. I certainly play quite a bit of games, maybe more than I should, especially on my. I kind of have another channel where I kind of like play games with friends. Nothing too crazy, like GTA driving games. But these kinds of games don't typically have too many of these kinds of concerns that these guys try to bring up. So maybe I've just never had as many issues with them as these guys do, or maybe these guys are kind of making an issue out of nothing, right? So I'm going to switch over to my computer's webcam. So excuse the jump in bad quality, but I'm going to be, trying to show something on my computer. So I'm going to put my phone away. Cool. Again, I want to excuse the drop in quality. I'm sure if this is something you guys want to watch, I'll increase the quality of my microphone and my web camera. Um, but as you guys may expect, the most important thing is not the quality of what you see, but with the quality of what I hear. So I hope some of the things I say resonate with you guys, or at least make you guys think a little more about what you're consuming, and if it's of any value. Someone's car is getting broken into. I don't know if you guys hear that. Cool. So up here I have some videos, and these are not all the videos I'm going to talk about. Um, it's more to just kind of like show you guys just kind of like what's going on and what the issue is. Um, Kind of like starting from the bottom here. I actually didn't watch this video. I just hate this issue YouTube has where like if you kind of like leave your mouse over a video and just kind of like walk away, it thinks you're actually watching the video through that tiny screen, and then like let's say you come back 10 minutes later, like you're already halfway through this video. So I actually haven't seen this video, and I'm not even going to talk about this video. But what I will say is, as you expect from his titles and, other people talking about him, he's a bit of a character, and, you'll see why exactly I'm talking about him in this video and in my previous video. Um, I will say though about this video, I actually did watch some of the episodes of this Tomb Raider show. Honestly, I personally liked it. It's good. It's not even like pushing any kind of like ugly DEI woke shit that these kinds of remind me to edit that part out. That these guys, are saying that is the worst thing to ever exist. It's just kind of like Tomb Raider, raiding tombs, which, now that I say it out loud, it's kind of like gross sounding. You would think that these guys would actually like her. But, no, the show is good. I don't even want to say that the show's not for everyone, because by that logic, Arcane shouldn't be for everyone, but, it's getting 10 out of 10s on pretty much every platform. Even I would give it a 10 out of 10. And, you could try to argue that that show's only for people that know League of Legends, but that's not true, right? Anybody can enjoy that show. And honestly, Netflix's Tomb Raider is about the same. You don't need to know about Tomb Raider, but Tomb Raider is a much more historically well-known and significant character. And honestly, while the show is different from Arcane in pretty much every way, the writing is good. At least so far. Maybe this guy watched a lot more of this. Maybe he watched a whole series. So maybe after like the third or fourth episode, the show does a 180 and starts going woke or broke or whatever. Part of the reason I want to talk about these videos, especially let's say this one here, Why Modern Gaming Sucks. This video is from 6 months ago, and the original thing I wrote is also from 6 months ago, because as I was kind of like scrolling through my YouTube homepage, I saw that he has a channel called The Critical Gamer, and I didn't even know this video existed. I thought he only had a critical drinker. So I was kind of like both surprised he had a gaming channel, but also not surprised, and then also double not surprised that his views on gaming is somehow even worse than his when he talks about shows, which you almost start to think that like maybe he's toning it down for the show, how far he takes the gaming stuff. I don't know, maybe yes, gamers just have thicker skin, but damn. But yeah, I wanted to talk about, this guy for a very long time until I saw these videos by the Birdman, just last week. And I both became kind of like a little upset that, I didn't kind of beat him to it. Because, again, the thing I originally wrote and put some effort to try to discuss is from 6 months ago. But I'm also kind of happy he made these videos, because he did a much better job at discussing, what exactly kind of person this is. And he does some really great research. So honestly, I can't recommend this channel enough, especially these two videos, exposing critical drinkers specifically, and just the entire thing he uses, the go woke, go broke. I'm not even gonna try to like give you a synopsis, but he does a really good job of discussing it. Like the whole thing with going woke isn't just a myth, because a lot of shows that you might consider woke do really well. Then there's a lot of copycats of all of these channels, especially with the critical drinker. He tends to kind of like, as I said in my previous video, he kind of like has a legacy. This guy talks about how that word as well, but a legacy of kind of like creating the same kind of bitter, bitter and like kind of like sad, pathetic people that he kind of is himself, as it's kind of like inspired people like Angry Pants Gaming, um, which even Ackman here kind of like is skeptical how much Andy Pants even like believes the same shit that he's spewing, or if he's just kind of like looking at critical drinker and he's just trying to like use the same formula. um, and then with these two videos here, the reason I have these that I want to talk about them is because this guy talks a lot about how like Ubisoft is shitting the bed because of how woke Ubisoft has become, and Ubisoft is bad because Black Samurai and all that, which again is not true. This guy himself does some really good research on this, and um, there really was a Black Samurai, and even if there wasn't, um, Assassin's Creed isn't the first game to have a Black Samurai even in it, but the whole concept seems to really piss this guy off. And based on this title and with these two videos being beside each other, you would think that these guys are all saying the same thing, right? Ubisoft is ruining the gaming industry. Ubisoft has lost more than their worth. Their worth being, their dignity, because they accepted the woke agenda or whatever, and then woke. But I think this video actually does a really good job of actually addressing the real issue, which has less to do with DI stuff and more to do with how Ubisoft is trying to change the direction of the gaming industry with something that I've been trying to talk about. I haven't yet, but in the future, that has nothing to do with gaming, and is more towards the what's the thing called, the World Economic Forum, right? You will have nothing and be happy, and that's really the kind of push Ubisoft is really trying to do. Instead of making one good game once a while, and then risk having the game flop, it's a lot better looking at the success of Netflix and Xbox Plus and all that, and just kind of like having a subscription base where you pay a certain subscription, and then you just kind of play whatever slop Ubisoft kind of puts out, regardless of whether the game is good or bad. That doesn't matter anymore, as long as they're constantly making games, even if it's bad. They're still collecting the money through the subscriptions, and the other issue that causes is no one's going to be buying games anymore. Kind of how like nobody really listens to music or anybody buys a movie. I personally still buy games. Like I don't want to continue to pay for yet another subscription. The only kind of subscriptions I have is kind of like gym, and if you consider insurance a subscription, because I have a car and all that. So really, that's kind of what's destroying the gaming industry is, don't own your own game, especially with how easy it is for gaming platforms to just kind of like take your own game away from you because you said a word they don't like. Um, I wish more people talked about the dangers of subscriptions, loot boxes, battle passes, microtransactions, than the color of the skin of a character. Honestly, as long as the game itself is good, I don't give two shits. I just want to play a game that has a good story, not a attractive character. Um, Anyways, this is kind of like my me rant. Just kind of like give you guys kind of like a feel of, like what I think and what I believe before we actually go into the video. And again, I'm not going to be talking about any of these videos except for like this one and another one here from Andy Pants himself from 3 months ago. Um, all these other videos, I want you guys to, if you want, you can watch them on your own, or you don't have to. Um, but these are really the two videos I really want to bring attention to, just to see how far kind of like this weird rabbit hole they go down. And once just I showed just how bad things can get, I will make another video, hopefully this week. If not, maybe I'll just have to push it off till next week, about what I think can help kind of like fix and kind of like put these guys in the right trajectory. And again, these guys are not gonna honestly follow that. They're gonna be kicking and screaming the whole way. But if at least like I can change maybe some of the people that watch their content to at least like hear me out, then maybe I can help at least like change the path of them to kind of like put them from a path of becoming a critical drinker themselves into becoming, a better version of themselves, whatever that means. If they think a better version of themselves is becoming someone like this guy or Andy Pants or, whoever else, this critical drinker has a lot of copycats, even if they're a diverse female. That doesn't change the fact that, unfortunately, the kind of things this guy talks about, there's a lot more that goes beyond the surface level, right? And kind of thing that obsessed me about him is I actually kind of like used to watch his videos, because at first I used to kind of like take a surface level understanding myself and be like, yeah, this show is taking it too far. I just want to enjoy a show, but I'm tired of like, I don't know how many of you guys watch like CW shows, but they're constantly, being talked about by just how awful they kind of push those agendas. And, even the left hate it because of just how much, they try to kind of like push that, not agenda, but it's kind of like the narrative where they almost take it too far, right? Like, this guy hates it when a show has a gay character, but just having a gay character itself doesn't change anything. Um, and what the CW does is like have a character who's gay, and that's basically their only personality trait. So every single episode they show up, they're like, "Hey, by the way, guys, I'm gay," and it's like, okay, who the fuck asked? This city is on fire. Are you gonna do anything about that? So when I used to watch his videos, I used to kind of like agree with that and be like, I don't give a shit about gay. Be whatever you want. But this guy's like, no, like gay people shouldn't even exist in media because that's pushing a gay agenda. And, after a while, you really start to become sick of it. And I guess that's kind of what happened with me. I just like could not hear the message said for like the thousandth time. So if you excuse me, I'm gonna open up the video and we can watch them together and see if we can like learn something, or if you're just gonna like point and laugh the whole time. I hope it's gonna be a little bit more productive than that.
Happen to be a Western game developer, in which case your escapist fantasy entertainment absolutely has to reflect the world we live in today. 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 You've probably noticed that there's been a bit.
I think that's a pretty good summary of himself right there. The way he kind of just keeps saying the message over and over again. As you can see, it kind of gets tiring, but I don't know if he's trying to kind of like play into his own kind of stereotype and just kind of like make fun of himself there, but it's kind of like keeps repeating that, and you kind of just can't help think, like what exactly his message here is. Because surely there's more important issues in games than like the external beauty of like the main character or whatever, right? I could play the whole video and like get up and use the washroom for the next 10 minutes, but I don't want to be that kind of creator, right? I know some people kind of like do that. But I also don't want to like play his entire video, and then like have people upset that just kind of like not being transformative enough. But also, if I keep taking short clips, I know I'm just going to also get criticism for trying to, I don't know, clip chimp him. So there's like so many different like concerns I have, but I kind of like do think that like it's important to discuss this. So I'm gonna like cut some of these sections short. And then we will kind of like watch kind of like the second half. I just kind of watched the video and then I came back just to kind of like remember what I even said in this video before we really even start to talk about this. But for your sake, I recommend really watching this entire video in its entirety if you believe I'm not being not just transparent enough, but like I'm acting in bad faith in some kind of way. That's the first section I want to show you guys. The next section, he says this.
A ruined and terrible form of life.
I mean, Jesus, look at the state of it. I don't think anyone wants to go on an adventure with this girl. A quick glance at your average AAA development page is like taking a walk down your average high street in Scotland.
This is the other point I wanted to show. As I said a second ago, like the external beauty of the character isn't that important, right? But I don't know if you kind of see a trend on this page, but yeah, yikes. Again, it's his own video, he's choosing what he wants to portray, and I'm kind of concerned by, what he's doing. Okay, next tab here.
First major problem seems to be a general rejection of femininity and female beauty in modern game development. A perfect example of this is the character model for MJ in the two Spider-Man games. It's the same character in the same game series made by the same dev studio, but with a radically different appearance in each one. In the first game, you can quite clearly see the facial model has all the traits commonly associated with traditional femininity. Rounded facial structure, full lips, large eyes and a small nose. Now compare it to MJ in the second game, and
okay, I was gonna pause it sooner, but again, I don't want to like just have a short section like that and just like take his words out of context. The thing I just want to point out is that when he talks about facial structures
lips,
like
large
this,
eyes and a small nose. Now compare rounded facial structure, full lips.
He says the words like facial structures, and it's kind of giving me a bit of an ick because what kind of people do you usually think of when they talk about the facial structure of someone? Like I don't want to jump to any conclusions here or like put words in his mouth or just kind of like apply something to him if he's not that, like not just for like legal reasons, but just kind of like I don't want to be that kind of person. But is it me or does that kind of sound like a white supremacist? No. I don't know, this is kind of like how I've felt about it. You might disagree, and I hope you're right. And then in the next section, he says this a little bit more further ahead.
I mean, if I was a cynical man, I might suggest that most game studios are infested with jealous, physically repulsive land whales who can't stand to be reminded that they've broken more mirrors than Conan the Barbarian.
Which I kind of feel bad for laughing because, I'm trying to take this seriously. That I have to kind of like That was funny. It was mean, but it was a good roast. Hats off to him. That was funny.
Me, this is a deeply flawed premise on two levels. One, because characters like Lara Croft, Ada Wong, Jill Valentine, Tifa Lockhart, and Aerith Gainsborough are all conventionally beautiful, but they've all stood the test of time as well because they were more than just their physical appearance. They were all genuinely interesting characters that people liked and identified with. Their beauty didn't undermine that, it enhanced it. The second reason is, well, down to simple human nature. We as people generally prefer to look at physically attractive individuals. We instinctively seek out beauty, we're drawn to it, and we enjoy being around it. Why do you think so many Hollywood actors or models or pop stars are conventionally good looking? It's the same reason we don't go to art galleries to look at children's finger paintings. We want to...
You know, like, he has some good points, you know, like, as he said himself, a lot of these characters, you know, like, have merit, you know. It's kind of, like, unfair to say that, like, you know, attractive characters in games are two-dimensional and, you know, only exist as a sex object. That's almost, like, even more sexist. The kind of, like, issue, you know, he brings up so well is, you know, there's more to these characters than just their external beauty. I don't know why I paused here.
Experience something higher and better, something aspirational. I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but there it is. The truth of the matter is that nobody enjoys looking at ugly people. Yeah, we know that most of us don't look like Chris Hemsworth or Sydney Sweeney, and that's okay. We know we'll never have a body like Chris Redfield or Lara Croft, and that's okay too.
And here, you know, he brings up another good point. You know, like, I'm not exactly Chris Hemsworth myself, you know, like, I do try to go to the gym and work out, and I have been seeing some level of progress, but the thing is, you know, just as for a woman it is to look like Lara Croft, even the 2000s era Lara Croft, it's basically impossible for me to kind of, like, ever get to, like, you know, Chris Hemsworth or, you know, Chris Evans or what's the other Chris? I don't know. The Chris's all look good for some reason. I don't know what's with them. You know, the funny thing is, I don't know if it's him or, you know, like, one of these other guys, but they were talking about how kind of, like, double standard it is. This was before the Acolyte, obviously, but, like, if you remember in the Acolyte, there was that one scene where, like, the big evil villain was, like, basically naked, and, you know, he had, like, abs and, like, the perfect body and whatever, and you just kind of, like, start to think that, isn't that kind of, like, doing too much of the opposite, you know? Like, there's, like, racism against, you know, like, minorities, and then, what upsets a lot of these guys is, you know, what these guys would refer to, and I'm not gonna say, like, he did it, but, like, you know, like, his sphere of people, he knows exactly what kind of people I'm talking about, even if I'm not talking about him specifically, but, you know, they would talk about, like, things like menonism instead of feminism, and, you know, racism towards white people, call it reverse racism, and those kinds of things. And when you look at, like, you know, a character like him, bad guy in Acolyte, topless. I forgot his name. I don't know if I'll see any. There's something very scary about Googling topless man on internet. Thankfully it's not too bad, but yeah, I mean, sure, you know, like, we all know what slave Leia is. I'm not even gonna Google that one. The real concern is that, you know, she's a slave, but now we've kind of, like, done a full 180, and now we have, like, topless dudes in Acolyte in Star Wars, and it's like two sides of the same coin, you know. You have, like, this is not only an impossible figure for men, just like how, like, you know, slave labor is impossible for women. And again, impossible is kind of like a difficult word to use because like obviously this person exists and he looks like that, and Slave Leia, I keep saying that, I think this guy's just so I don't know. At the end of the day, when I look at this, I don't think that's an impossible figure. I'm not self-conscious. I'm gonna cry myself to sleep because I'm never gonna look like that. When I see this, I think, why the fuck is he naked? I think, why the fuck is he naked? I think, why are any of these people, like taking their clothes off? Not only does it not serve the story, but even if it does, like a lot of like obviously when you look at this shows clearly, made for kids, right? So why is this in a show for kids? I think we need to have less naked people in like kids shows. Let's continue with what he's trying to say.
Ability to assert themselves in any particular situation. Women, on the other hand, are now written to be stoic, confident, assertive, arrogant, and aggressive, which are the same exact traits that were once considered toxic in men. They're basically trying to turn them into men, or at least a warped parody of what they think masculine behaviour is, and I think that mentality is bleeding into gaming now as well.
An understandable point he's coming from, because if, I never watched, was that, Miss Marvel movie with Brie Larson, but everybody hates her because she's like such a stoic Mary Sue with like no personality. People love watching like faulty characters because everybody has faults, and if you write a character that has no issues and they don't overcome their issues, you don't just not find them relatable. As difficult it is to kind of like say this with a straight face, he kind of like does have his point about like writing women who have faults, because when somebody has faults, and we watch them grow to overcome those and become a better person, we find them more likable. You need to give people something human about them to be able to be relatable. People need to have faults so you can kind of like see yourself within those faults, and as a character becomes a better person, if you have those same faults as well, you can see and kind of like learn from that to become a better person yourself. There's a reason why like movies and games are such a big industry. Like where did these come from? It's all from like one of the oldest things people have ever done, which is I think Nicolas Cage said it best in his movie Unbearable Talent. The art of storytelling, is something as old as time itself. As long as like humans, before you could even call them humans, you could argue that they had a conscience, and even then, you would see them draw stories on walls. And sure, Star Wars is the furthest thing from that, but art is still art. Anyways, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make sense to most of you. But all said and done, I think what we need to do is just understand that humans do have faults. But we can't also just say ugly characters also don't exist. Or not don't exist, shouldn't exist, because you could even argue not being conventionally attractive is a fault in itself. Why could you argue that you don't find someone relatable because they're stoic and a Mary Sue, which is a word they often use for like Rey in Star Wars, issue changes from how well she's able to use the Force without any training to the fact that ugly people don't belong in media. You kind of like start to think, okay, how is ugly people in Star Wars less realistic than the Force? He does, sometimes make good points. The problem is he wraps them up with kind of like a bow of just the worst kind of traits you could have when it comes to being a person who just kind of behaves like this, which is why I was so resistant earlier to calling him like a white supremacist. I don't want to call him that, but when he's talking about facial structures and he's got like a podcast and a bunch of other people who are also some of them you could even argue are even further down that pipeline than he is. You kind of like worry for him that he's a lot further down that route than he may want to admit to both himself and his audience. And, to a lot of people, that's obvious when you hear him say things like, show things like this. But to some people, they they hear what he says about this, and it's just kind of like take it at face value and don't really like understand the deeper meaning of what he's really trying to say. Or I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too far into it. Maybe I'm a crazy schizo nut job. Let's just move away from this and talk about the next subject. Now, here's the thing, right? Japan, tends to make a certain type of character design, and Japan itself is a pretty kind of like a conservative country with their own kind of like culture. And this guy definitely has a lot of gripes when it comes to Western developers and how they create characters. But here's the thing, end of the day, gameplay and story is all that matters. And, I've never played Stellar Blade. Based on the gameplay, it's some sort of like, I don't know, like these Japanese type of games, like, I don't know if Devil May Cry is Japanese, but, like Konami, makes those kinds of like fighting games with the swords and the guns, the way characters fight. Is you can definitely tell is a lot different than how like characters would fight in games created, by EA and Ubisoft and Rockstar, stuff like that, right? I personally, do I find this attractive? Of course I do. Like the issue isn't how attractive the character is. Like it's really about gameplay physics. You can make, like a game that's like has super attractive characters, but if it doesn't have any story to it, then you didn't make any like game. You just made a porn. It's interactive porn. That's what it is. So I think like if that's all you want, then Rule 34 is right there. But I'm not saying Stellar Blade is a bad game. Of course not. I'm sure it's fun based on like the scores and metrics it has, but there's, as the saying goes, different strokes for different folks. And Critical Gamer finds this interesting. Go ahead and play it. And if you don't like, I don't even know what game this is. You don't have to play it. You don't like this game, don't play it. I don't know. I kind of feel for him when he talks about, games changing their direction in a completely different way, and that kind of makes the game, alienating when, you kind of like fall in love with a game based on a previous version of it, and you don't like the direction the next one went. I personally, have quite a bit to say about what is the name of this game? The Last of Us Part 2. But, given how the first game ended, I kind of understand the story. Do I like the fact that, the incident that happens here happens? Of course not. I don't think anybody likes what happened, but you also have to kind of like sometimes put yourself in the shoes of other people, not just within the story, but in the shoes of the people who, like don't just want to play with, I don't know if he has the character here, but you don't just always want to play with a character that looks like Ellie, in Last of Us. Sometimes some people do look like this, some people look like this, and some people look like this. Where's that one screenshot? People look like this and people look like this. People go from looking like this to looking like this, from looking like this to looking like this. end of the day, I don't care what she looks like because most of the time, the third person camera is behind her, not in front of her, you know? And maybe my eyesight isn't so good, but from where I'm sitting over here, what I see is like, a figure way over there running around and jumping over like a big robot dinosaur or whatever happens. To be honest, I actually haven't played these games yet. I bought them a long time ago. I just kind of never got around to it. Honestly, I just keep playing the same like 5, 6 games over and over again. Which is, I don't play any of the games he's shown on this. I've never played Resident Evil. I've never played this game. I haven't even played any of the Tomb Raider games, believe it or not. But it's kind of like another issue I have with like Tomb Raider and Uncharted, which is they're just going to like these beautiful places, and when they come out, these beautiful places that they've built in their world building are always getting destroyed completely, and kind of like almost like it's saddening to watch something so beautiful crumble. But like different people play different games. Like yeah, this game kind of flopped. Nobody wanted to play this game. But end of the day, the games people play is based on how fun the game is, not necessarily just by the character design. Does character design help sell copies? Sure, but you never really see Master Chief, and people always say that Master Chief is again self-insert. You can be like a small Filipino lady and still play Master Chief. He doesn't have to be like a white dude, but he is. But that doesn't stop people from always enjoying like Halo. Because in the day, what makes Halo fun is the fact that it has a story of a person who's going out to save the world, and the gunplay feels amazing. So that's really what makes Halo fun to play, not the fact that Master Chief is generic white guy number 724. I don't know, I just came up with a random number. I agree that Concord didn't do so well because of how awful the character design was, but the real reason it didn't do so well is because it honestly really didn't give anything in the way of not just being yet another generic Overwatch clone. Like Overwatch was kind of like, I don't want to say like the first one, but it's kind of like the de facto hero shooter. But there's the Marvel version, which has the all the Marvel characters, and there's different versions that have like something they do to kind of like give a reason to play it other than just being another Overwatch clone. Car games are just the characters are the cars, right? City games like City Skylines and SimCity and stuff like Civ 5, those games, like have people in them, but those are like historical figures. But really, it just comes down to just kind of like how you kind of like position your people on the board and how you kind of like use the units at your disposal. Like I think of it this way: doesn't matter if I'm shooting aliens or zombies, or I'm doing a bank heist, or I'm the getaway driver, or I'm just kind of like doing like like racing in a racing game or whatever it is. When I'm in the steering wheel of a car, the last thing I care about is whether my character looks like this or like this. Like the character can be like I don't know, what's the opposite of this, like a black Jewish trans woman with Down syndrome, let's say. I don't know. I'm not saying like that's the kind of character the left expects to be driving a
car at 300 miles per hour. But the point is, those things don't matter. End of the day, you know, last thing you care about or think about, it's not even going through your mind, is do I find a character attractive at this point in time? No, right now you're trying to like get to the next checkpoint as fast as you can. Um, or like you're just trying to survive with your last few remaining bullets. But you're never gonna see these guys being upset that the game is contains microtransactions. I've never heard him talk once about that in his entire video. All he cares about is how attractive the character is, and it really like does nothing for the game if the game itself is just riddled with late stage capitals on microtransactions and subscriptions. Like even GTA is going that route with GTA Plus, but his concern with GTA is the fact that GTA said that they're no longer going to punch down on like having you know humor against like minorities and those kinds of groups, which you know GTA was always about parody. Nobody really cared about GTA doing that stuff. Obviously, some people did who didn't really understand what satire means and have no sense of humor. Every single GTA game has people trying to cancel it, so I'm sure that kind of hurts the bottom line of trying to sell even more copies. But the whole thing with GTA is pushing the boundaries of what's offensive, but it's more to the effort of kind of like ridicule to kind of like be better, not ridicule in terms of haha yeah black people really are like stinky or whatever. So is GTA 6 gonna be bad? I mean, I hope not. I generally want to play GTA 6, but if it sucks, it's gonna be because of GTA Plus, not because it didn't include enough racist jokes in it, right? Now, I've done a lot of um, personal introspecting on this matter, and to be honest, I still don't know what exactly my personal beliefs are. Like I'm myself and always changing. My personal politics are always changing based on new information that I receive from the world and lessons I live from living life. So many times I hear, about the newest, previously beloved franchise getting the whole put a chick in it and make it gay kind of treatment, right? And I always just kind of think the same thing. Why? Like, why make Ariel black? And then, you know, you always see the follow up on that, be like, you wouldn't turn Peter Parker black, right? Because why would you do that? There's Miles Morales, he's black, you know. You wouldn't make a white version of Miles Morales. That doesn't make any sense. And there's a. I understand kind of like how a lot of these arguments go, but I think my personal point is, yeah, why create something that kind of already exists, but only change kind of like one thing about them for the sake of cultural, inclusivity. I guess that's the word. You know, are you so creatively bankrupt that when you decide to do an adaptation of The Little Mermaid, the only thing you can think of changing is the skin color of Ariel? Like, end of the day, Ariel is a mermaid. It doesn't matter if Ariel is white. A white mermaid doesn't really make sense either. Give it the Avatar treatment, like James Cameron Avatar, not Last Airbender Avatar. Give Ariel green skin. With fish-like scales. That'll make a lot more sense. End of the day, I don't know if it's enough to satisfy people's kind of like hunger for anger, but I think maybe a better thing you could even do is to just kind of like make a different story within the same universe about a black mermaid living in a different part of the ocean, but still in the kind of like a Disney universe. I don't know why you just kind of think like putting a black mermaid into a movie won't sell, and I guess it probably won't if the only thing you do about um, the story is just change one character's skin color and just call it a day. You still have to put an effort to write a story that's worth um, reading or watching or looking at. um, a story is worth being told when it's a story that's well written. So when I look at something like this, the issue I take with it isn't their skin color or what their characters look like. I care about the game, and I'll be fully honest. I don't know any of these games. I don't know who this person is or this person. I think that's probably from Starfield. I don't know any of these. I've only played Watch Dogs 1. I've never played Prey. Um, so I really don't know who any of these people are. But I don't know them because they're black. I don't know them because, maybe I didn't find the story of the game interesting, or maybe there's something else about the game, like Watch Dogs 2. Why would I play Watch Dogs 2 when I already played Watch Dogs 1, right? Did they change something to improve the game? I don't know. Like, there's something vastly different from Halo 2 to Halo 1. You can't say, oh, I've already played Halo 1. I don't need to play Halo 2 or Halo 3, right? That's crazy. But when it comes to Watch Dogs 2, or even better yet, let's talk about Far Cry. People always complain about how, Far Cry 6 is the same as Far Cry 5, is the same as Far Cry 4, is the same as Far Cry 3. Now, personally, I actually kind of like really enjoyed the stories of 3 and 5, the only ones I played. But as people say, what really matters is kind of like the story of those games, and I guess to another bigger effect, the gameplay, right? The gameplay loop is what matters, because otherwise it's just the same game with a different face. Um, and it's kind of, I guess, funny that we're talking about face regarding skin color here. But yeah, honestly, something needs to change within the formula of Far Cry, and it's not just replacing the dude from Far Cry 3 with a black chick in it. Yeah, that game is not gonna sell, but it's not gonna sell because the character is a black girl. It's not gonna sell because the game is the same. Like let's say they call that Far Cry 7. Well, it's gonna be not that different from Far Cry 6. So why would anyone play it? They already played Far Cry 6. So, you really need to change something, and change can be scary. Halo 2 got a lot of controversy when it added the Arbiter, because people thought Halo was only supposed to be about the Master Chief. um, I personally really like the Arbiters bit, but my point still stands. I don't know what these characters are or what their stories are. Maybe I wish they did. Maybe if they were a story worth telling, I would have known something about them. But the reason I don't isn't because, I don't find, these people attractive or not. The issue is I don't find a reason to play the games. And if I don't find a reason to play the games, I'm not gonna buy the games, like um fuck your microtransactions. See, now that's the difference between me and this guy, right? I fully admit that, I'm not gonna play a game for the sole merit of having this character. But my issues with it is, again, it just comes down to kind of like the fact that the game itself has to be good, not whether the character is black, that means that's a bad thing because black people are a bad thing, or because I don't know, DEI woke agenda or whatever, right? End of the day, when you're making a game, the thing that matters most is the game itself. I think I ranted off enough for this video. It came a little too long than I wished. So what I'll do is go back to my original plan and splitting the two videos. Soon I'll talk about the legacy of this guy and kind of like the culture he creates, both in the real world and on YouTube. The kind of people that are created from his behavior, and if you think the kind of things this guy says in this video are taking things too far, then you may not want to watch my next video. Anyways, I hope to catch you soon, and good luck.